In this video, we're going to be going over the trigonometry ratio of cos theta. So just as an overview of what we're going to be doing, we're first going to be looking at all the values of cos theta. Second, we're going to be getting some simple tricks to generate the cos theta table. Third, we're going to be visualizing all the values of cos theta. Fourth, we're going to be showing proof of the trigonometry ratio of cos theta and how it works. And fifth, we're going to be creating the trigonometry ratio of cos theta using coding. In our last video, we talked about the trigonometry ratio of sine theta. So if you are interested, you can go check that video out. And we also do need some sine theta knowledge in this video, so if you do have any confusion, I do recommend for you to check that video out. And also in our next video, we're going to be looking at the trigonometry ratio of tan theta. So with that out of the way, now let's just refresh our minds of what cos theta actually is. So cos theta is basically b over h, which is the base over the hypotenuse. Or some people like to call it the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And also cos theta is basically the projection of the hypotenuse onto the base. And we're going to be talking more about that in the visualizing part. So now that we know what cos theta is, let's look at the values of cos theta. So we're going to be calculating the value of cos theta, where theta will equal to 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 60 degrees, and 90 degrees. And next we're going to be deriving these values on a table with coding. So I'm just going to say what all the values for each of these degrees are, so we can look at them later on. So cos 0 is 1, cos 30 is square root 3 over 2, cos 45 is 1 over square root of 2, cos 60 is 1 over 2, and cos 90 is 0. So these are basically just the values of cos theta, and then we're going to be expanding our knowledge on these later on in this video. So now let's look at some simple tricks that can help us to generate our cos theta table. So to find out the cos theta values, we're first going to need to know the sine theta values. So to get the sine theta values, we're first going to make a table like this. And then we're just going to write 0 to 4 in each of the columns. After writing 0 to 4, we're just going to put divided by 4 for each of the ones. So for sine 0, it would be 0 over 4. For sine 30, it would be 1 over 4. For sine 45, it would be 2 over 4, and so on. And next, we're just going to be square rooting all of these values. So 0 over 4 square rooted is still 0. 1 over 4 square rooted is 1/2. 2 over 4 square rooted is 1 over square root of 2. 3 over 4 square rooted is square root 3 over 2. And 4 over 4 square rooted is 1. So now basically to find our cos theta values, so we're just going to flip them from what we had in the sine to the cos. So basically we would take the 90 from sine 90 and we'll take it and put it as cos 0. And for sine 0, we'd take that and put it at cos 90. So basically our table for cos would look like this. Cos 0 is equal to 1. Cos 30 is equal to square root 3 over 2. Cos 45 is equal to 1 over square root of 2. Cos 60 is equal to 1 over 2, and cos 90 is equal to 0. So these are some simple tricks that can help you to generate the cos theta table without memorizing everything. So now let's get on to visualizing our cos theta values. So from before, we already know that cos theta is the projection of the hypotenuse onto the base. So when theta is equal to 0, the projection onto the base is 1, as shown in the figure. And if we remember from our table, we know that cos 0 is equal to 1. And this is basically because the hypotenuse is just a straight line onto the base. So we already know that everything is going to be projected onto the base. And likewise, if we go to cos 90, then we know that it's 0 because the hypotenuse is basically straight up and there's no projection onto the base. And if we go down to cos 60, we know that it's going to be half. For cos 45, it's going to be around 70%. And for cos 30, it's going to be around 87%. And I'm going to be showing all these images right now. So as I'm showing the images, you can just tell that all these values are the same as we saw in the table, and this is basically just an easy way of visualizing the values of cos theta. So now since we know what cos theta is, we know the simple tricks to generate the table, and we know the values, now we're going to be proving all the values and seeing how it actually works. So now let's prove it. So we're first going to be drawing a unit radius circle. Then we're going to be drawing a line with a 30 degrees angle. And once the line hits the edge of the circle, we're going to draw a line straight down, forming a triangle. So as I'm saying this, I'm going to be showing the picture on the screen. And since now that we have our triangle, we're going to name our sides lowercase a, b, and C. And we're going to name our points capital A, capital B, and capital C. So now let's say that we're given the value of our hypotenuse, which is basically side AB, and that is equal to 1. So just with this one triangle, we cannot find the value of cos theta, because if you remember, cos theta equals to B by H, and this triangle does not have enough information for us to find out the values. So to find out the values, we're going to need to duplicate this triangle to make an equilateral triangle as shown in the image. So now that we have our equilateral triangle, we can now find out our values of cos 30. So we already know that side AB is equal to 1, so we also are going to know that side BD is also equal to 1. And this is because the equilateral triangle has all equal same sides. So if side AB is equal to 1, side BD is also equal to 1. And since side BD is equal to 1, side BC will equal to 1/2 because it's half of side BD. And now since we know the hypotenuse and the perpendicular side, we can use the Pythagoras theorem to find out the value of cos 30. So the Pythagorean theorem states that a squared plus b squared equals to c squared. So now let's use this formula to find out our value of cos 30. So let's start with actually substituting our values in. So we first have a squared plus b squared equals to c squared. So let's just replace that b squared with 1 over 2 squared, and let's replace that c squared with 1 squared. And since we don't have a squared yet, we're just going to leave that as a squared. So now our equation looks like this. A squared plus 1 over 2 squared equals to 1 squared. So now we first need to move our 1 over 2 squared to the other side. So how can we do this? So we first need to minus it from the left side and bring it over to the right side. So to do that, all we have to do is a squared plus 1 over 2 squared minus 1 over 2 squared equals to 1 squared minus 1 over 2 squared. And now since we have that, our equation looks like this. A equals to 1 squared minus 1 over 2 squared. So now let's just square all of our values. So we're going to leave a squared as it is, and then 1 squared is equal to 1, and 1 over 2 squared is equal to 1 over 4. So now our equation looks like this. A squared equals to 1 minus 1 over 4. So now we need to subtract our values to remove that 1 over 4. So to do this, we need to first find a common denominator, and to do that, we can just basically put a 4 under, and then multiply the top by 4 as well. So we're basically going to get a squared equals to 4 over 4 minus 1 over 4. And if we minus that, we get a squared equals to 3 over 4. So now, since we have a squared equals to 3 over 4, we need to bring our square to the other side, which will make it a square root. So we basically have square root 3 over square root 4. And then if we square root 3 over square root of 4, then we get square root 3 over 2, which is basically known as 87%. So if we look back into our table values, we could see that sine 30 is also equal to square root 3 over 2, which is basically 87%. So this is basically how you can find out the values of cos theta. And just note that I just covered the way to find out the values of cos 30, and the same way you can find out the values of cos 0, cos 45, cos 60, and cos 90. So this is basically an overview and an introduction of cos theta. So now we're going to be creating our cos theta table using programming. So in reference, this is what we're going to be making today. So we're basically just going to be creating a website that has this button here that says show trigonometry table, and once we click the button, then the cos table pops up and we have all of our values inside of this table here. So we can see that cos 0 is 1, cos 90 is 0, cos 30 is square root 3 over 2, and so on. So the programming languages that we're going to be using today to create this website is HTML, CSS, and PHP. And if you want an in-depth explanation of what each of these programming languages does, then make sure to check out my sine video where I explained what each of these do. So now let's get on with our coding part to actually create this website. So I'm going to open up our code here, and basically what we're going to first do is that we're going to create a big folder called Trigonometry Ratio, or you could just write sine ratio or whatever. And then we're going to be creating two folders inside of the Trigonometry Ratio folder, and the two folders are going to be CSS and PHP. And then inside of those folders, inside the PHP folder, we're going to make you can make any file name you want, but this one is going to be for our actual table popping up, and then CSS is just going to make our website look prettier. So now let's get started with our HTML and PHP code. So I first put up all the HTML and PHP code in the same page, because then it'd be easier to reference to, and then we wouldn't have to switch through lots of different pages. So we're declaring the HTML tag, and here is basically the HTML tag we're declaring, and then we're going to be creating our head tag here. So this is basically where our actual title page will come, and then we're going to be linking our style sheets to this. We're first going to put our title of our website, the trigonometry ratio, or even you could even write here of cos, and then you can just save that, press Ctrl S to save. And then here we're going to be linking our first CSS page and our second CSS page. So we're basically gonna write link rel style sheet, and then we're gonna be doing an href, and then we're gonna be going back one folder, and then we're gonna be going into the folder CSS, and then we're gonna be going into the folder header.css. And the header.css will help us to actually make our header, and I'll show what that does later on. And for our second style sheet, it's just the trigonometry ratio one to make our table look nice and our buttons look nice as well. And then we're ending our head tag there. And then here we're making our header, and this is basically, if I go back to our web page, this is our header here, this blue thing with our text here. So that's basically what our header is. And we're just making the H1, that's called trigonometry ratio, and we're making the background color blue. And next we're opening our body tag here, and our body tag, we're just going to be creating the background color as orange. And then our HTML is done. So now we're going to be moving on to our actual PHP tags. So this is basically just all of our PHP code, and I'm going to explain what each of them actually do. So we're first going to be creating a variable called display form, and we're going to make that set it to true. So intentionally what we're going to be doing first is, if we go back to our website and see here, so we have our show trigonometry button. So right now we're going to be setting our button to true, but once we click on it, we want it to disappear. So what we're going to be doing to make it disappear is we're first going to make the display form equal to true, and then once the button is pressed, we're going to be set that display form to false. So that's basically what we're doing here. So we first have it to true before anything happens, so we can actually see our button. And then if server request method is equal to post, then we're going to be actually plotting our table, and we're going to be hiding our button. So this form action equals to post, basically we get it from here, and I'll explain what that does in just a bit. So now we're going to be creating an if tag, and we're going to quickly just close off the PHP here. So we're just creating a new HTML tag here for our show trigonometry table, and here we're going to write the form action is equal to post, and then we're going to put the button there. So as soon as it's post, then it's going to hide this button. So now we're going to be opening up our PHP tag again, and if the server request method is equal to post, then we're going to be plotting our table as we did over here. So if we go up here, so now we're going to be going over to our function called plot table. So if you look here, plot table, and then we have those brackets, that means we're declaring a function. So as soon as it reads one of these two tags, it's going to immediately come over here, and it's going to start reading this code and start printing it out on the actual screen. The function plot table. So echo is basically another way of saying put onto the page. So echo in PHP means putting onto the page so we can see it. So we're going to be echoing out our table, which is our actual table inside of the, if you go back, so this is our table that we're echoing out. So we're basically going to echo out our table, so this is just some CSS to make the table look good. And then we're going to be making the top part, so the 0 degree, 30 degree, 45 degree, 60 degree, 90 degree. So basically this part up here, so we're going to first echo that part out. And then after that, we're going to echo out our second part, which is the cost values. So if you go back, then we can see the cost value here. So 1 square root 3 over 2, and so on. So this is basically, we're just echoing out our cost values and our top values for the 0 degree, 45 degrees, and so on. And then next, we're just going to be closing up our table and our header for this part. So that's basically it for our PHP code. And let's just quickly go over to our CSS code so I can quickly explain. And this is it for our CSS code, so you can just copy this down, and I'll just quickly explain what it does. So our header, we're just going to make our background this color, but we're overriding it either way, so it doesn't really matter. And we're going to make the color of this white for the text, and then we're adding some padding, some text align, and the font family and the font size. So feel free to pause the video and copy this code down. And now I'm going to be going over to the trigonometry ratio of CSS. So the CSS code for the trigonometry ratio. So we're first making our width for our main 680 pixels. So that's basically for different screen resolutions. And then next we have our body tag. It's basically kind of like the same thing up here for the header, just a different color. And then here is the trigonometry ratio table. So you can also feel free to pause the video and copy these down too. and here we're just moving up our actual values. So this is basically just our PHP, CSS, and HTML code, and now let's run this to see how it works in our website. So we're first going to need to save all of our code. Just remember to save it. And now let's go over to our website. So let's just enter, and then we get our trigonometry ratio, and we get our button, show trigonometry table. So we're first going to need to click this, and then this table pops up with all of our values. So cos 0 is 1, cos 30 is square root 3 over 2, cos 45 is 1 over square root of 2, cos 60 is 1 over 2, and cos 90 is 0. So that's basically our coding part of creating this trigonometry ratio table of cos theta. And that's basically it for the trigonometry ratio of cos theta. If you guys ended up enjoying this video, please remember to drop a like and subscribe, because it does take a lot of time to make these videos, and it will help us to make more videos in the future. And I'll see you guys in the next trigonometry ratio of tan video.